So you don't fail. Keep at it. That's something we want to really build into our kids.
And be intentional about doing that. And I love the picture that you have of helping just day by day your daughter learn how to ride that bike because pumping up music. I feel
like
pumped
that one?
up. Just pumped up for this podcast.
What songs do you want? What kind of genre would you like for the future?
I like kind of like the U2, Coldplay type of vibe.
Yeah.
But also anything. I'm just kind of go with the flow with music.
Yeah. And our backgrounds, anything changed? Would you like something different? We kind of let Kurt choose these, and he's like surfer dude, and he likes surfer, and
yeah, right. Well, this is in honor of Kurt again, since he is not sitting here. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our On Purpose Parent podcast. If you did not listen to last week's episode, you missed out on. You should listen to our last week's episode, but you missed out on us talking all about Kurt because Kurt is not here. Kurt is normally a co-host. I'm Grace, but today, once again, and we're very excited, we have a Kurt co-host replacement.
Yeah, so I'm Chris, and I'm wearing a hat like Kurt does.
Are you wearing clothes like Kurt wears?
I don't know.
No. This is a different style.
Yeah,
this
he wears like OP from the Ocean Pacific from the 80s and stuff. No, I'm more of an Oakley type guy. I like stuff with that. But yeah, I got a super bad haircut yesterday. I mean, it was
so the hat is
like the shortest ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's I look so bad.
I bet you it doesn't look so bad.
Well,
but it's also probably very well timed for this summer season because it has been
so hot,
sweltering.
Yeah,
just unbelievably hot outside.
And I love it.
But it's air conditioned in here.
And I love that too.
Our mics, the videos are all working. We had great intro music, and we have a sign behind us, a picture in honor of Kurt, who likes surfing, who's not here with us. So we are ready to rock and roll today.
Yeah, for sure.
So parents, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of On Purpose Parents podcast. This podcast really is, I don't know if you got that vibe, if it's your first time listening, but we are not experts. We don't have degrees in child psychology or development or anything like this, but we are a group of parents who are at different stages of our parenting. You know, kids, I have kids 8 and 11.
Yeah.
Chris, your kids are a little older.
Yeah, 24, 28, and 32.
32, and you've seen a lot of things. I feel like I've seen a lot of things, but I know there's a lot more to see. But really, this podcast, our hope, our dream, our goal is to just create that space where parents like us and you can talk about the real ups and downs of this crazy parenting journey and to encourage us and parents that you're not alone. And we are going to, just share our experience, maybe advice that we've gotten from other people, our failures, our successes, and just be a community together to support one another in this wild journey of parenting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, Chris, you've had a bit of a milestone recently with one of your kids.
First
too.
One got married. Yeah, first one got married.
Marriage. Wow.
One down, 2 to go. Wait, that's kind of weird to say. What if they want to be single? That's okay.
True. It's okay. So
they
just
don't
one
need
down.
Another person. Yeah,
just one down.
Just one down.
And how did you feel? Did you cry?
I did. I actually officiated the ceremony, and I was like, I gotta not cry during this thing because then you make it about you instead of the bride, right? So I'm up there, but then when my son, they wrote their own vows to each other, and when he's reading the vows, and your face is really close to theirs, and I'm choking up, but then he's tearing up and crying,
he cried
and I was
too?
But before that, when I started crying is like right at the beginning when she's up there and I'm like, her name's Melissa. And I said, Melissa, my bride Tina and I, we have been praying for you since before Jacob was born. Like when Jacob was, and we were praying for the spouses of our kids type thing. So, and I can't even tell you how many times Tina and I prayed for her and not knowing who she was. And then now, so all those emotions kind of hit me there at once. And it was crazy. So
that's so special. Like you see, your son's entire childhood flashing before your eyes, all the different things and experiences you've gone with him and the prayers that you've had. And then that's a powerful emotional moment. And to see it culminating in sharing of vows.
Our heads are still spinning about it. It's just so crazy. And then to have, to really feel like I didn't feel until that day that I had another daughter. Kind of thing, you hear that and you're like, well, daughter-in-law, but then this is the one who he is going to spend the rest of his life with, and she's a part of our family now. She took his last name, so it's Melissa Reed, and it's like I didn't even think through those things really until I was preparing for what I was going to say, but then it was. Yeah.
All the feels. All the feels. Oh, that's beautiful.
Part of, I think, what makes our podcast so amazing, like the biggest part is you stepping into this space, Grace, that you have Kurt and I who have raised 2 kids and he has raised 2 kids and I have 3 kids and we didn't raise our kids together. I said that kind of weird, but Rachel and Kurt and Tina and me, we raised, but it was a completely different world back then. Same principles apply, which is good, but very different world. I mean, it is even harder and crazier than when we raised kids, which was harder and crazier than when my parents raised kids and stuff, Yeah. So you to be able to step into this space and say, I'd love to help parents just by sharing my experiences and things that I read and what we're learning together, what Sam and I are learning together is, it's invaluable. I am so stoked that we have you guys here now, that you're able to be here and to share and before you get like famous and kind of move on to other things. It's
that
like,
is not going to happen. Well, thank you, Chris. You are always so encouraging. That is definitely one of your gifts I've seen from the very beginning. And what you just said actually segues really well into what we're talking about today, which is, the world is a crazy place. It can be very difficult for our children. It can be difficult for us, for parents. Yeah. And what we want to do is to figure out a way that we can just one little small step that we can help our children become more resilient in their lives. And so we started the series. It's a 3-episode series. We started it last week. And last week we talked about bulking up their inner selves, their self-esteem, their self-worth, and their confidence, and how we can, as parents, really tap into the privilege we have to shape that foundational part of what it means to be a resilient kid, is having that sense of identity and self-worth that's not just tied to external factors. And this week we are going to be talking about, and here's the title again, written by our wonderful co-host, Chris, also
thank you very much.
Producer Chris. But the
title
episode,
writer, Chris.
Yes, the very wordsmithy title writer is Strengthening Kids to Turn Defeat into Victories. He has written this whole description as well that you can see in our podcast notes, show notes, or under the YouTube descriptions. But really, it's talking about, I just wanted to point out a few things here because they're so good. Arming your child with resilience to transform setbacks into comebacks for success. I mean, you could make that into a song. And also, you also wrote, how can we talk about strategies to help your child bounce back from failures and disappointment, fostering a mindset of growth and resilience? I mean, don't we want these this for our kids. We want our kids to be resilient.
Yeah, because we don't want them growing up to be adults that quit on everything, that feel defeated about every little thing, and they isolate themselves, and then depression sets in and all this stuff because they because they're not resilient.
Right, exactly. So thank you all for joining us again for this second episode, and let's just dive right in. So I think like we've done in past episodes, we just have a few thoughts. Chris and I, we don't talk about this in advance. We come in with our different perspectives and angles, and we're just going to kind of bounce back and forth and just share our experiences, our thoughts and insights. But I will say we would love to hear from parents as well. If we say something that you really resonate with, we'd love to hear that. If you think there's something that would benefit the parents that we didn't talk about and we didn't cover when it comes to the topic of helping our kids face failure and not just be crushed by it, but to still be able to get up and bounce back and thrive, we'd love to hear that, because we want to share those resources, those thoughts and encouragement to our whole parent community.
We're trying to create a community with all parents who are like, I need help. I want to help others, that kind of thing. So just drop comments in there, and you guys can have conversations in there. We read all the comments. We'll take some of the comments if you have suggestions, things like that. We'll create resources. We'll write blog posts from it, and then episode questions that we can discuss. But just communicate with us in comments. That would be fantastic.
Yes, we love it. All right. So my first encouragement on helping our kids really face failure in a healthy and resilient way is for us as parents to redefine failure. Even what are we talking about when we say failure? Like it triggers that word, you failed, or this was a failure, or I failed in this, triggers emotions for us, and maybe different for different people or different severity of reaction. But none of us, I would venture to say whatever it triggers is probably not a happy feeling or like a pleasant feeling or a feeling of happiness and joy. So that's a normal thing. But I think as parents, one of the things that I really want to encourage us, and I'm so included in this, is that if we can redefine failure in our minds, that understanding that failure is a really important part of a child's development. It's actually so important for kids to fail, because that means they are on a path to learning, because you cannot learn without failure. It just does not exist. So any kind of growth, any kind of learning, failure is an essential ingredient, a stepping stone, a part of that. If we have this subconscious reaction to failure as a condemnation or something not ideal, it will hamper growth. Actually, it can get in the way. The image that I want to just leave with parents, that I want to associate with parents, is like your little child who's learning how to walk. And I just, I'll just say, I just remember Zoe, because Zoe, different from Karis was very ambitious, even from a young child. So like early on, before she was 1, she was like, her first few steps were like many few steps, and she fell. But Zoe was like very chill kid. So we would put her on the edge of the bed even till 6 months, and we would feel comfortable doing it because she just didn't roll around. She just kind of laid there, and we'd be like, Zoe, do you want to crawl? And she'd just look at us. She'd just stay there. And so we would all of us would be trying to encourage her to crawl, to walk, to do something. And she would just kind of chill. So anyway, when she got to that stage where she was interested in like pulling herself up, taking a few steps, we were all just so ecstatic. And I just remember, it's like, you take 2 steps and then you fall on your bum, and you're just like, yay, you did such a good job. I remember we have it on video. Friends were over, and she took like 4 steps before she fell, and we were excited and cheering for her. And then there was a moment where she's not even walking. She's just She just kind of stood up in the middle of the room and kind of wobbling, like she looks like she wants to lift up one leg to take a step.
Yeah.
Like you can see the muscle movements trying to contract, but her feet's not lifting up. So she's just standing there like wobbling, and we're like, oh my gosh, oh yeah, you're doing it. Go, go, go. And then she just sits down and we're like, that's okay. I mean, it's so joy filled. Yeah. It's so fun. It's exciting. But if you think about it, our babies who are learning to walk are constantly failing.
Yeah.
They are failing at walking. I mean, they are like utter walking failures. They just get up, they crawl, they do an army walk. I mean, they're not good at it.
Yeah.
But to me, that's the image of failure I just want to encourage parents about is that can be the beauty of failure. Just trying at something, working at something. We don't just say after a couple tries, well, our child's never going to walk, What a failure. Or how terrible would it be if our child, who has emotions at that point that they could articulate was like, wow, that was embarrassing. That attempt did not go well. And I did that in front of all these people who are watching me just follow my bum, trying to do something new that I've never done before. Better not do that. Better just stick with just crawling.
Yeah.
That would be terrible. So, anyway, that's just my point first point is let us as parents also redefine failure as an essential ingredient to growth and learning that can be a beautiful thing.
They wouldn't learn if they didn't try something like that, right? Yeah. So the baby would go from point A to point B and crawl. Hey, I can get you from here to there. And can you imagine the baby being a high schooler that would just crawl around and not walk? That's crazy, right? But that's kind of the illustration, the picture I had in my head when you were given that. Yeah, I had put down just the thought of when we want to strengthen our kids to turn defeats into victories is to change the child's perspective on the same thing. So kind of like what you're saying with the parents, if they'd redefine the wins, change your child's perspective that when they face like defeats and disappointments and stuff like that, it's they'll see it as a chance to grow, right? And to improve. And instead of feeling discouraged, they'll see these setbacks as a place where, hey, these are steps to success. My son was really good in school. When he was younger in particular. And there was one particular class that he was struggling with, and he took a test right off and did not do well at all on the test. And, was upset, came home, was just upset the whole time. And we sat down and we talked about it. And, he felt like a failure. He felt stupid, those types of things, even though he was doing really well. Well, we talked through that and just said, hey, well, why do you think you got that particular grade? And what did that look like? And, he didn't put responsibility like sometimes kids will, right? On, well, it was a teacher's fault. They didn't explain it right or whatever, right? No, it was like, what could you have done? Because you can't control most things in life. How other people act and stuff like that. You can always control your response to these things, right? So that's one of the things that main things that we would over communicate to our kids. So with Jacob, it's like, what could you have done? It's like, well, I could have studied a little bit different. I could have studied a little bit longer, and I could have studied a different thing, a different part of it and stuff like that. And it's like, great. So this is a win because we learned from it. Now, try not to make that same mistake again. Yeah. Right. And kind of moving into it. So I remember he'd play baseball, and in Little League, I'd coach his teams, and he would be upset after making an out when he's up batting. Right. So he wouldn't get a hit. He'd go back to the dugout and be upset. Well, you can't just quit in baseball, right, and walk out and leave. I guess you can. People kind of do.
I'm done.
Or get so discouraged that it ruins the rest of the game where you play terrible the rest of the game. You have to get over that piece. One of the things that we had talked about was, I'm like, who's one of your favorite players, and he was like Mike Trout or whoever. And they were, that person is batting 300, which is a fantastic batting average when you're hitting 300. That's 3 out of 10 times you're going to get hit. The other 7, you're not going to get right. So there's all these other little failures that happen that you grow from, that you learn from, and you can't let it get you down or mess up your life. Right? You don't want it to steal your joy in feeling that way. There's a great scripture in Proverbs 24:16 that says the godly may fail 7 times, but they'll get up again. So it's that idea of you get knocked down, you get back up, and that's resilience.
That's awesome. That's a great illustration. I really liked what you said. It was very quick, but you were saying that was something you over communicated with your kids about, having agency in the things that happen to you, not just blaming other people, but looking at, okay, in this situation,
what can you control?
What were the elements that I can control? And those are the things that I can pour into that might influence the outcome next time. And that's such a great thing to point out. But also what you said, over communicate is sometimes I think as parents, especially as kids get older, and you don't want to like cross the line and just be nagging all the time because that could shut kids away from you too. But so not everything, there has to be balance, but the things that are core important values, like how to help our kids be resilient with failure. I think that's such an important thing because failure is going to be all around them in their life. Over communicating points like that, I think that's such an awesome thing to do, and a responsibility and a privilege that we have as parents to kind of just reinforce that. So that's really cool to hear that story and how you encourage your kids and all the different things that they faced and they're growing up and now they're getting married and probably going to have more failure, not marriage failure, but in relationships is tough. And that's going to be something that will really help them continue to take those principles into their adulthood.
We hope so.
That's awesome. Okay. So my second encouragement here is to let your kids take risks and also make mistakes and spill stuff. So
that's awesome.
What I mean by that is in order to have kids practice this principle that failure is not the worst thing in the world, but it's a necessary part of growth, and it could actually be a positive thing. We do have to let our kids take age-appropriate risks. And I think this might be easier for some parent personalities than others. I know some parents are pretty might be more loose. And then you have other parents that are a lot more worried or anxious or want to just make sure everything is set up well. And it could even manifest in small ways, like your kid is going into the refrigerator, grabbing, that half gallon, or is it a gallon? The of milk.
Gallon.
Is a gallon. Okay, gallon of milk, that the traditional plastic jug. And they're trying to pour from that full, and we'll jump in like, oh no. Let me do that. Right? I mean, I can't tell you how many countless times I'll do that. It's too heavy for you. Let me do that. Right? Before I finish my point, I want to share, recently I saw on YouTube, it was like this viral video of this uncle with like a 2-year-old kid, his niece. And it was so funny because he has the video in front of them. So they're like sitting at a table. And so they're looking at the video and they have like 2 little teacups, and they'll have actual real like lemonade pitchers or water or milk or like liquid yogurt. And he'll be like smiling. And it's funny. He's doing this purposely, I think, because he did one and I think it got really viral. But the little kid is pouring drinks for them. And it like always starts off well. And then it's just the entire jug dumps out. And it's like whoosh. And I think the reason why the video is so funny is the facial expressions that he does. He's always like his eyes open really wide, like, what just happened? And, he's hamming it up a little bit, but it's really adorable. And so he has a compilation of all these videos of him having tea or drinks with his niece. And she's just every video dumping water, milk, juice, onto just the table, making a mess, but she's trying to pour the cup and he's doing his facial expressions and all of that stuff. But there's this one final video, I think it was like a year or so had passed, so she's slightly older, where she's like, no, let me try. And he's like, doing his funny faces, and it's so close. She's pouring it, like the liquid goes all the way up to the rim.
Yeah.
And she pulls it back just in case. So it's like the cup is brimming.
Oh, wow.
But she puts it down, but it's brimming, but it didn't overflow.
Oh, wow.
And she puts it down. She's like, I did it. And his face is even more shocked, like, wait, what? You did it? Oh my gosh. And it was just it's just a fun compilation video. And I think my point here is not let your, kids make mess without rain and, just let them spill drinks.
Yeah.
It's not that, but that same kind of urge you might have to always take that milk jug and take care of it, or always jump in and fix something or make sure it goes smoothly. In some cases, maybe when you're at a guest house, yes, you should, but it's to encourage parents, just ask yourself, wait, hold on. Is this something I should let my child try on their own without my assistance? Even if I know they're going to screw it up and create a mess, or I can see it. I could see they're not quite ready for it.
Yeah.
But are they close enough that I let them take that risk and let them have that failure, because I know that failure is about to come.
Yeah.
And then talk to them about it, encourage them, like show them like what they might do a little bit differently, and basically to be intentional about letting your kids mess up. And the reason why is that if you always shield them, if you always just take care of things, if you always just resolve things before they even become a problem or a mess up or a spill, they will just have less experience. Mm-hmm. And part of it is we want our kids to have lots of experience of failing under our roof, while we can watch them, while we can supervise them, while we can talk them through how they feel, or do about that. And I'm not saying, again, milk is expensive these days. I'm not saying like waste food. It might not be that. It might be some other situation, but just at least to be thoughtful about it and ask that question. How can I let my kids take some risks where I know they're not quite ready, they might fail, make mistakes, make spills, so that they can gain that experience that allows them to grow more confident when they face quote unquote failures like that again in the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. The second thing I wanted to say is about perseverance and effort, that as a parent, you would communicate that to your kids and help bring that out in your kids, help them persevere, help them put in more of an effort in that kind of thing. And this is going to really help them be resilient, putting in the hard work and not giving up. And it makes me think of when my daughter Kaylee was learning to ride a bike, right? And she would try, and what we did is we went to a park close to our house and tried there. So when she would fall, she wouldn't skin up her knee too bad, right. And it would just be on the grass. And plus it's a little bit easier for the tires to work on and kind of learn from there. So she would, she would ride and then fall, like all of us would, and then ride and fall and ride, and each time you just like, keep it up, I'm here with you. And you I would try not to let them just fall straight flat really hard. It would kind of be holding the back and let it gently down a little bit. But then sometimes when I would let go of it and she would be riding, she would fall down. But that whole idea of, you're encouraging them along the way, you're present and just helping them. But that tenacity, building that into them. And just because you fall doesn't mean you'll never learn.
Right.
And, there are so many people who have excelled, inventors who have failed so many times. Like, I don't even know how many times Thomas Edison failed and how many, he's invented so many things, but you can Google that and see. I think of Michael Jordan, who did not even make his high school basketball team. He got cut, and, he's the greatest player who ever played National Basketball League, right? It's just, so you don't fail, keep at it. That's something we want to really build into our kids.
And be intentional about doing that. And I love the picture that you have of helping just day by day, your daughter learned how to ride that bike because as kids, we need someone else to tell us that it's okay to fail because it's not a great feeling to fail. So that leads into my last point, which is normalize messing up and normalize that failing is hard and acknowledge that it's hard. I think my first 2 points were really kind of to emphasize that failure can be a positive thing, but in real life, the feeling is not great, right? So it's like, yes, we can say all we want that failure is necessary, failure is important, failure is part of learning and growth and, building confidence and resiliency. But when you think about the moments that you failed and just didn't do well in something or were not competent, and maybe that happened in front of other people, if you just kind of bring yourself to that space, it's not a great feeling. Like in that moment, you're not going to be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Failure will lead to my growth. Like, I mean, you hopefully you do think that. So later when you're reflecting, it helps you recalibrate kind of some negative emotion. But in the moment, it's not fun. It's not pleasant. And so I remember with Karis, when she was younger, we would be playing Thumb Wars. And this was what, sort of first insight into like her personality and just, how she ticks. And, we'd be playing Thumb Wars. Her hands are so tiny. So, as like a parent, she's like 3, she would beat me and I would be like, oh, you got me. And she's laughing so hard. She's just having so much fun. And then like after a few rounds, I said, okay, Karis, mommy's going to win now this time. Okay. Like my turn to win. And we actually made it a verbal agreement because I didn't want to like surprise her. I was trying to ease her into like taking turns, winning and losing and just experiencing that.
Yeah.
And mentally she was 100% with me. She's like, okay, mom, you win this time. Your turn. Like she was very like gung ho about it too. So I said, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare it the more, I'm going to win now. And she's like, yep, your turn, mommy's turn. So I pin her thumb down. And I was like, yay, I win. And she was smiling. And I still can see this. It felt like, when a cloud or eclipse goes over the moon, like the shadow shifts over. You could see this eclipse go through her body where she's smiling. And then it's like this like cloud came over where it like her smile turned into this frown and she wasn't upset at me, but it was like that feeling of losing, that feeling of failing, even though she knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But as a 3-year-old, she couldn't like control that feeling. And she was like, I don't want to play anymore. Like she was like, it felt so bad. Like it didn't feel good for her to lose. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a real experience that she's having right now of losing and failing and not liking that, even though it wasn't a surprise. So one of the things that we can do as a family that is a suggestion is at the dinner table or regularly make it a habit as your family to share something that was hard during that day. So this is a way that you could normalize it. You could say, tell me something that you tried today that just didn't work out. Let's go around and just share one thing. Everyone shares something that was hard, because this is good. This is part of our experience. And in a lot of ways, we can lead by example. I will tell you, the kids are more excited and interested to hear stories of Sam and me failing than our like successes during the day. And I don't know if that's like a human nature thing or if it just feels like, oh, there's some validation of things that we fear, that when someone talks about them going through a failure, if it's something that I fear or I don't like or I don't feel good, it starts to feel safer and it becomes more normalized. And I do think that that's part of the reason why my kids are always like, oh, wait, what happened? How did you screw up? What happened? What did they say? What did you say? And then what did you do? Like they're very curious about it.
Yeah.
But so we do tell them a lot of our failures during the day. Like, I thought this was going to turn out like this, but it didn't. Or I was working on this project and I was working really hard and it's not there yet. I'm struggling, this is really hard. And so we make it a point to just ask that question. Tell me something hard today. Tell me something that happened that was hard. And again, the idea is to normalize, to empathize with each other, that these struggles, these failures are feeling wise are difficult, but you're not alone. Your parents are screwing up.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're talking about it and we're going to get through it. I think that's one real powerful way that you can help your kids see the bigger perspective and gain resilience against failure, the negative feeling of failure, by just sharing daily experiences of things that are hard and normalizing that.
Gosh, you said so many great things in there. It makes me think just about how different families are, how different children are. I mean, even our children, right? Raised in the same home. Your two girls are so different from each other. Totally. My three kids, they're so different from each other. Our families are very different from each other. And that's why, one of the things we say is look for the principle in things. Don't compare and copy kind of thing, but what's the overarching principle in what we're talking about? Like, one of the things that you shared was that idea of a parent being present, but also doing things first, so modeling it. So that is a fantastic principle in parenting. Don't ever say something like, do as I say, not as I do, right? That thing that we've probably heard our parents say, that kind of thing. It's like, well, you model it, be open and honest with things like that. So yeah, but that's some really, really good stuff, Grace. The last thing I wanted to share about was that you would teach your children to seek support and learn from their mistakes, that idea. But really, seeking support is kind of a big thing. Their friends, their coaches, their teachers, from their parents. Jacob, I want to go back and just kind of share a funny story with him. In school, I forget which grade it was, maybe 4th grade. He had this project where he had to create a mission, right?
Oh, yeah.
Was that 4th grade?
I think that's 4th grade.
Yeah, back in the day it was. But so he wants to do the San Juan Capistrano mission, right? So he's like building this recreate. And my bride Tina would always help with projects like that. I've got no, I don't have anything creative in me, right?
You don't like to do the super glue, hot glue gun.
No, I'm not even the fix it dad, and things like I need other handymen, so I'm.
You're very technologically savvy.
I just watch YouTube stuff and
with producing this podcast.
But so Tina would do their homework with them on projects like that. And she put together this, it took them probably the better part of a week. I can't even tell you how many hours they put into this mission. Yeah. So he's super proud of it. He takes it there, telling me the story later. Dad, that was the worst out of the whole class. It looked terrible. And they were like thinking it looked great. I thought it looked great. It was better than anything I could have did.
Everyone else just did so much.
Yeah. So he ends up getting a C on the project. So it comes back a C. Wow. Tina was so mad. She's like, how did we get a C on that? He's like, Mom, how did we get a C? It was just crazy. So he talked to the teacher afterwards, because you saw these other projects, and we actually saw it on one of the open house nights. And everyone had went to the store and purchased their project and brought it. So it was like this pre-made thing that they painted.
Wow.
So everyone had like the same thing.
Yeah.
So
you should have gotten an A.
We talked about that part. Hey, okay, bad grade. You didn't do that well with that. But next time we learned you need to buy the pre-made and then just paint it. Moral of the story. Yeah. Don't work so hard on a mission project. But I get, kind of the thing with that. I know Tina had I don't even know. I was going to say she had a great time with her son during those times, but I think
you don't
it was
even know if that's true.
I think it was
It's
stressful.
It was just stressful.
I think it was crazy.
Homework. Yeah.
I think it was crazy. Why did I tell that story?
Why did you tell the story?
Davin, we need to edit that out, bro. But I guess just the thought of asking people for mentors to kind of help you with certain things. So, and teaching your kids how to talk with adults, how to talk with their coaches and teachers. So it doesn't always fall. I mean, you'll do it when they're really little, but as they start getting older, they need to be able to ask their teacher, hey, I need some help with this particular problem, with this homework, that kind of thing. And coach, hey, what do I need to work on in these areas? How come I'm not playing as much, or, just how can I be a better athlete, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, yeah, because I do think like that seems like something we would think that our kids would just do. Oh, if you need help, you would ask. But that's not the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't see other people asking, or you don't want to draw attention to yourself. Or let's say you didn't get a part in a role or something, or, like you're auditioning for like a show and you didn't get it.
Yeah.
Normally that's it. You just kind of walk away. But that whole idea of, no, you can dialogue with people. You can ask for feedback.
You got to get feedback.
Yeah. And don't be afraid of that. Why don't you go to that teacher and say, do you have any advice for me, or what I could do better? And actually creating space and encouragement for your kids to do that, that's going to be super powerful. Kids that can pursue questions to mentors, or pursue feedback from people when maybe something didn't turn out exactly as they hoped, I can see those kids being so much more equipped than someone who won't ask, or is afraid to ask, or never got the encouragement to go out and ask people, adults, and mentors to help them.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. That's another one of those principles, just how important mentors are, right? And being able to ask for help.
Right.
That's so important.
Yeah. And that goes to this whole topic that we're saying today as we wrap up. It's really demystifying failure. It's redefining failure, so we think of it not such a negative thing. It is encouraging our kids to talk about it, to ask people for help, to get that feedback, to not hide, to not be ashamed of something that doesn't work out the best, to normalize that all of us, everyone, if people are seeming like they don't struggle, then you're just not seeing the whole story. That's not reality. We're all struggling together, and we don't have to hide ourselves or hide our failures from ourselves, our family, other people, and that if we can lean into that, they can really, like you said, use that failure to turn into something like raw material that will propel growth, which is exciting. That's what we want for our kids. And so, well, thank you everyone for listening again to our On Purpose Parent Podcast, our second episode of Resilient Kids, talking about failure. As always, I am Grace with Chris, missing Kurt, but we're excited to spend this time with you and looking forward to next week for our last episode of the series.
Episode 3 is going to be so good.
Episode 3.
Thanks, parents.